Welcome to the Co-Movement Gym podcast. This week, we are talking with Jenny Hanmer. Jenny is an accomplished runner, former triathlete, mother, business owner, wife, and all-around badass. She has qualified for the Boston Marathon 7 times and has raced in 2021, 22, 23, and 24. She ran her first 50K at Green Lakes in 2022, placing second female. Jenny won the first annual Brookfield Classic 50K in Brookfield, New York, beating a competitive field and finishing the race in 5 hours and 30 minutes, just 1 minute off the course record. She just got back from running the 2024 Boston Marathon in 3 hours and 38 minutes, which will be the topic of discussion today. The Co-Movement Gym podcast is sponsored by Native Path Supplements, Lombardi Chiropractic, and A Dog's Day Out Doggy Daycare. Mention this podcast or use the promo code in the episode description for a nice discount on us. Jenny, welcome back to the podcast. How you doing?
Thanks. I'm doing good.
I'm super pumped to talk about the Boston Marathon. So I'm really interested in learning a lot about the marathon running distance, but also that race and that experience for you. And I know a lot of listeners are always interested in tackling new adventures, new runs, and all of that. And so, how do you qualify for the Boston Marathon?
So to qualify for Boston, it's a lot different than there's the 6 majors that you can run. Boston, you can either run as a charity runner or to qualify, like you said. And so to qualify, you need to run a marathon, a certified marathon for Boston. So my first marathon was at the time the Old Forge Marathon, and they were not certified yet. So that time didn't qualify me. So you have to run a certified course in the time frame that they have. And then, I mean, like my qualifying time right now, because I'm almost 46 next week, is a 3-hour, 50-minute marathon. So, but that being said, so many people register, they have to actually, you actually have to run faster. There's a buffer that they have, like they'll cut it down to maybe a 3:45. So I like to go like at least a 10 minutes, faster.
Sure. So it has to be a qualified race, and then there's a time that you have to run that race in based on your age group.
Right.
And so for a 3-hour, 50-minute qualifying race for you, what is that split time for you per mile?
So I ran this, it's so I did a 3:40 for New York City, and that was like at 8:20 pace. So, I mean, I like to keep it around 8:20, 8:25.
Mhm. That's awesome. Yeah, that's cruising. So yeah, you've qualified how many times? What, 7 times was it
7
for
times.
Boston?
Yep.
7 times, yeah. What is your with your training? What does your peak week look like? Preparing for a race like Boston, like volume wise. I'm really interested by that.
Well, I think every year it's been different, and I'm not great at training. Life happens a lot of times, especially this year. It was pretty rough. So my peak week's maybe about a 65 miles that week. Um, just depends, I guess, on really the year. And I don't tend to put in as many miles as some people do. I just, my body can't handle it. So I do have to keep it a little bit
Mhm.
lower and stuff for recovery. So a bit, probably 65 would be the highest I've gone.
Yeah. I like how you mentioned it's just like your training is based on life and your schedule, right? Like you're a mom, you're a wife, you have a job. So like your training, it needs to change based on day to day, week to week. I like to remind myself of that too, because I'm a very structured guy by nature. But I have found that as life gets busier, the business, personal life, projects, that if I have a 90-minute run schedule, then I can get in 30 minutes and that's that. I have to be okay with that. Um, and that's sort of been a stress relief, I guess, at some level for me. Is it stressful for you if training doesn't go the way that it should, or are you at peace with that now where you are in your training career?
I think last year I was really struggling in making sure that I always hit those workouts. This year, like I said, so many things happened, and I really wasn't excited about running Boston. And even up to like the last month, I really thought about just pulling out and not going. Um, and I had to be at peace. My business really took off this year. So I was working a lot more hours, and I knew that it was just go out and do the best I can. Um, Try to hit the workouts that I could and be at peace with that. So even going into Boston, I knew, hey, I did the best I could. I'm not an elite runner. I'm doing this for fun. Like, if I'm going to get stressed out about this, why am I doing it? So I'm just doing it for fun. Like, come on.
Yeah, the stress piece, it's interesting because you and I are both competitive people by nature, right? And so,
Yeah.
um, it I find that if training is a dread, for too long, that something needs to change, whether it's what I'm doing, the volume, the environment, the people. You want to enjoy, I think, like 80% at least of the training sessions. Now, it doesn't mean that it won't be painful and your struggle and this and that, but I mean, like, the excitement going into it. I'm 41 now. And so, like, I don't want to spend 6 to 10 hours a week doing something that I don't want to be doing. So, already knowing that I am disciplined and you are, that we have to find joy in the pursuit of what we're doing with training. So yeah, I think that's a good reminder for everyone listening. Definitely. Do
Well,
you, Jenny, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just say, I wasn't finding that joy. I had ran New York City in November, and I was almost feeling like, do I even like running anymore? And it was kind of scaring me because I know how much I really do love it, but I was just burnt out. And then to turn around and start a whole nother cycle for Boston was rough. I mean, we were fortunate that in New York, we didn't have as hard a winter as we normally would. So it wasn't as horrible, but even those long runs when it was
Mhm.
cold out, it was tough, and I wasn't Scott would ask me, like, "Do you really even like running anymore?" And I'm like, "I don't know, I don't." So, it was I mean, y it was tough.
Mhm. Yeah, I follow you on Strava and I followed you all winter long. And yeah, meanwhile, I was inside running an indoor track at Hamilton College. You're outside running 10 to 15 miles and 15 degrees and wind. And like I'm cold walking from my vehicle in from the parking lot into the thing, and you're out for like 2 hours like a nutball. And so yeah, you impressed me this winter for sure.
Thanks.
So do you track your heart rate during your runs? Do you get into that at all, like zone training, like zone 1, 2, 3, any of that?
No, I don't. My watch, I know that the watch isn't as accurate, and I've used the armband one. I don't like the chest one. It aggravates me. I know my watch is wrong. I mean, I've gone out and I'm like, there's no way that that was as hard as it was and stuff. So I don't really follow that as much. I kind of just try to go by feel. I'm not great at that. Some days I feel like this is so hard, and I look down. I'm like, oh, no wonder it's hard. It's because I'm going way too fast and stuff. So I'm not great at the whole
Ye-
training thing.
Yeah, well, you're you're doing something right for sure. I'm interested because the that I've learned a lot in the last 6 months about heart rate training and in zones. I had my VO2 Max test done here at
Oh,
the facility with Dr. Steven Janopoulos. And we had four other people that had it done. And then we got like this super comprehensive, report done on us. And so I learned a lot about like zone two training, which for me is about a heart rate of like 135 to 138, 139. Um, and how like the body utilizes the different fuel sources. So like zone two, you're utilizing mostly fat. And then once you start breaking above that, you get into more like glycogen and your sugars. And so for me, when I'm running my zone two training, my heart rate is like I said, 130, maybe to 138. And I'm running like an 11-15 mile, but the recovery is much better and the damage on my body is much less. And I'm teaching my body to burn fat as fuel and not carbohydrates. And so I'd be interested, like if you dialed in your zone two, how you would feel and if that would help anything.
well, I've definitely thought about that. And there's that big saying of run slow to run fast. That like a lot of our runs should be slow. So I will go out and try to run slow. I'll even put like slower music. I'll put a podcast on because you get good music, you just start pacing a lot faster. And I'm horrible about it. Like if I'm with someone and we're talking, I can maybe run around to 9:30 and then it feels great. I'm like, oh, this feels really good. But I'll go out and try to run a 9:30 and I'm constantly having to pull back. So I mean, it definitely is something that I need to work on and not worry about if somebody sees me, do they think I'm out walking or
Well, I think it should, I'm not giving you advice, but I am like, I think
no.
it would be interesting for you to dabble with zone two training. In my conversations with Dr. G, he was saying like the elite runners are doing 80% of their
Yeah.
training in zone two. And he was saying like it's the bottom of the pyramid. Your speed work, obviously you do less of it as you go up higher in the pyramid. And so for your, let's say your 8:30, 8:45 mile runs, your heart rate could be upper zone three for all you
Oh, yeah.
know. um and so since I have implemented the zone two training, while it's not fun, I've gotten faster and I feel different when I want to hit the gas into the zone four, zone five areas. I have that power and am able to do that. And so I don't know what it is. I don't know the science behind it. But I don't know. I thought of you and I wanted to bring that up.
No, I definitely it's something that have thought about and I'll go out and try. Um it, it I mean, even when I'm out on the trails, I know that my watch isn't great about, but the recovery from those trail runs is a lot better because I've run slower and stuff. So, I mean,
Mhm.
I know I need to try it. And it's funny because in years past, my friend and I used to run all the time together. And so then when I would go out and do a speed run, well, we don't run as much. And so I'm out there putting a lot of gray miles in. They're not fast, they're not slow, but they're just gray. So they're really kind of pointless at times. And I do know that. So that's kind of a nudge for me to start
Mhm.
trying to do the slower runs.
Yeah, yeah, again, like the slower runs, about 80%, but then that other 20% is definitely more fun. And so one thing that I'm breaking it down into is like lactate threshold training. So 30 to 75 minutes at, it's called a VT2 heart rate. So it'd
Mm,
be so for me it's like 163, and so I'm doing different training at that heart rate, and then also VO2 max training.
mm,
So that would be 3 to 4 minute intervals at pretty much an all out pace, so like a heart rate of like 168 to 173, and then I would walk for 3 to 4 minutes, and then I would repeat that for 4 to 6 sets. So that those are the three like training areas that I'm dabbling with, is the zone 2 lactate threshold and the VO2. And with that heart rate monitor, it makes it really, really, really fun because you're tracking something the whole time you're doing it. So I've found joy in that.
that's cool. Like, and another part I'm not great at is a lot of people will go out and they'll do the intervals. I'm like, I just go out and run. I need to learn to do better about that.
Yeah, well,
Put on my shoes, get it
we'll put a
done, come
reminder out.
home.
Well, we'll put a reminder out there for everyone listening. You are a much better runner than I am. So I'm just letting you know what I'm doing for training. But yeah, you would, for people listening, Jenny would destroy me as a runner. So as she does. So I mentioned the VO2 max training that we had done. Dr. G is probably coming back up here in the fall. I would love it if you could join us for some testing here,
Yeah, that'd be
and
cool.
get some data on where you are. That would be really, really cool to see you
Yes,
do that.
definitely, definitely.
All right. Well, I'll keep you in the loop for that. So let's talk about injuries. I know you've struggled with certain things like every athlete does. Can you tell me about injuries in the last, say, 6 months to a year that you've been working through and what you're doing to improve those?
So, because of my job, I clean houses and organize and stuff. I'm constantly bent over. So, my biggest problem is my back, my sciatic nerve that runs down my right side in my hip area. It's been a problem for years. Depends on the week how bad it is. But in the last year, it's been pretty aggravating. And so, I'm not great about taking care of my body when it comes to that. I'll complain about the pain to my husband and he throws me an ice pack. I don't really take a lot of medicines and stuff, and I should probably be getting into the chiropractor. It's on the list of to dos. Um, but that is probably my biggest problem. But the road running it's brutal on me, and I know it. The pounding and stuff. So we switched over. Now we're getting ready to start training for the Brookfield Classic. So I've been back on the trails, and that has definitely helped. It's softer. Um, Working on my core to keep my core strong is big for my back and stuff. So I don't really struggle with um, foot injuries or any of that. I've never really had a big problem. My knee pain and stuff always comes from the sciatic, that right side and stuff. So I'm
Mhm.
icing my back constantly, and that's about it.
Do you have a chiropractor?
I used to have one, but I don't have one anymore.
Well, you should get a hold of Lombardi
Yes.
Chiropractic in
Yeah.
Oneida. Um, yeah, he's adjusted me for close to 15 years. I've dealt with a whole slew of things, and he's worked with our clients for probably 12 years.
It's on the list.
Lombardi Chiropractic has been Co Movement's trusted chiropractor for the last 14 years. They have worked with hundreds of our clients, and I can confidently say they have the most knowledgeable and holistic approach to care that I have ever seen. Whether you suffer from migraines, low energy, nagging pain, or just simply want to improve your overall health, I highly recommend contacting the team at Lombardi Chiropractic. Mention the Co Movement Gym podcast and receive 50% off your initial consultation and x rays. Native Path has been a podcast sponsor of ours since day one, and it's because our clients feel amazing using their supplements. While a lot of products on the market today contain useless fillers and incorrect dosages, Native Path holds to a higher standard. Native Path's ingredients are sourced from only the highest quality, properly combined nutrients, all while being offered at competitive prices. Use code COMO15, that's COMO 15 at checkout, and receive 15% off each order. Here at Co Movement, we put a lot of energy into helping you become happy, healthy, and strong. But we're not the only ones needing a good workout. That's why a dog's day out is the best place in Central New York for your pet to spend their day. Your dog will be as happy and healthy as you when you let them run, play, and socialize instead of just sitting on the couch waiting for you to come home. Give your dog the active day out that they deserve. Mention this podcast and get a free day of doggy daycare at a dog's day out. On top of that, like, are you working on like glute strength and low back strengthening exercises?
That is, I just started this week to really start. So I'm actually more sore because I started working on that. But I have to stop ignoring that because for a runner, I need those to be strong and stuff. So
Mhm. Yeah, I have a lot of exercises that I could help you on.
awesome.
At some point, if you're looking for advice with that, we've dealt with, the sciatic nerve, SI joint dysfunction, a lot of that with people for a lot of years. So after this call, we could definitely at some
Yeah.
point help you with that.
Awesome.
So let's talk, Jenny, about the day of the race. Were you nervous going into this race?
I wasn't necessarily nervous because I didn't really set a goal for this one. It was just to finish, to have fun. Just getting to the start line this year, like I said, I wasn't even sure I was going to go. So I wanted to have fun. I on the way to the start line, I started to get in a little anxiety. I'm not sure where that came from, but my best friend was with me, Kara, and so she knows. And I just said, Kara, I'm just not feeling great, and she's like, just talking my ear off, and so she knows me. She knows how I can get, and once we got there, I was like, I was fine and stuff. So
Do you have affirmations during the race that you repeat to yourself, like in your if you're in the pain cave or doubting something? Do you have anything that you repeat?
no, I don't really repeat much. I think about all the people that helped me get there. And I think of especially my husband, Scott. He's just been my rock, and I knew I'd see him a couple times, and at least I'd see him at one point and stuff. And so just thinking about him and how proud he is of me, whether I finished, whether I, you know, did or not and stuff, and how I did, he doesn't care. And so I think he was probably the one I think about.
That's awesome. That's great. That did you during the race, did you have a low spot at all? I know throughout different events, a lot of times people hit a spot where they're questioning something or it's not going according to plan. Did you have a mile marker that was hard for you at Boston?
Um, Not this year. Um, it was a warmer day than I guess that we hadn't anticipated, and especially if a lot of people that are training in the winter times and stuff, we're used to like 20, 30s. I mean, this year we had some decent weather for winter, so it wasn't bad. But I think it reached 76, maybe was the high. And for a runner, that's hot. And we had a tailwind, so it really you didn't feel like you were getting cooled off. So in my head, I'm like, I just need to be able to focus on my hydration. I knew that. So um, maybe around I saw Scott at mile 8, and I normally see him at mile 10. So I kind of was thrown off a little bit by that. So I was getting kind of nervous there, like, wait, I'm seeing him so much earlier. Am I going to be able to, mentally get through the rest? And then I just started focusing on my hydration, making sure I was doing what I needed to do. And I planned for that 20 mile, 21 mile bonk that a lot of people
Mhm.
hit. And so I knew at around 2021 that I needed to take caffeine to wake myself back up. And I don't tend to hit that wall. And I didn't hit that wall this year. So,
Wow, wow, wow. Do you attribute that to, well, obviously you did something correct during your training, but also nutrition during the race? Um, I'm assuming that was pretty dialed in for you, like your carbohydrates, your sodium, electrolytes, that kind of stuff.
yeah, I definitely know that I could have taken in more sodium. I didn't have any salt tabs with me. I had contemplated it, but I was planning on drinking all of that. And I did have because I use Noon, and I use their endurance line for, I put it in my bottle, but I have the tabs too that I could throw in my bottle and add more water. And I didn't mess with that, and I should have. That was one thing I probably should have done. But I know around each mile, when I should be taking my gel. So I took a gel in the very beginning, right before, as we're walking to the start line. I started taking at mile 6 and just kept rotating which ones I took. And I wait on the caffeinated one until that 2021, so that it's hitting me and I'm waking up and stuff. So I don't hit that wall. I did have a little bit of little stomach offness, which is typical. I don't throw up or anything. It doesn't really bother me, but it will sometimes get in my head, and I think, well, maybe I shouldn't take my gel, but I'm like, just sip on it and stuff. So that's what I did, and then I was fine. So
What do you know the ratios that you're taking in as every half hour, every mile, every hour, like for sodium? What are you playing with? I don't really know much about that at all. But what's your strategy with nutrition?
well, I use a combination of UCAN and the Morton gels. So the UCAN, typically they say, is like every hour. In a marathon, I definitely do more than that because I'm only running for 3.5, 3:40. So um, I started with a UCAN, and then at mile 6, I took um, another UCAN, because later in the run, I didn't want to have to carry any of the Morton. Later in the run, I think it's about mile 11. I can't remember exactly which mile it is. They have the aid stations, and that's what they have on course. So I'm what's the point in me carrying it when I can just get it on course? And they have so much that they're not gonna run out. And then I switched over to that, and I think maybe it was 18. I took another UCAN and then switched back over to Morton and stuff. So I don't really know the ratio. I just kind of go by how I feel. I was drinking a lot of fluids. The plan was once I got in and I knew how warm it was and how I was feeling towards that warmth, the plan was later the only time that I would walk would be to open my bottle and dump water in and then fill up with water and continue. So I think the last half of it was like every other aid station that I would fill up. So I was making sure I was taking in a lot of fluids. I knew I was sweating a ton, and we're just not used to that heat.
Hmm. Yeah, no, it's 76. Yeah, we hit that for a few months out of the year, but for the most
Yeah.
part, we don't have that. So let's talk about the marathon distance. I've read this before and I've talked to runners, and it's coined as possibly the hardest distance to race. Do you believe that?
I definitely think it's a different beast. I don't run a lot of shorter races. I don't like the all out like the 5K. You are from start to finish all out. I don't really like that. I also like to just run. So I think the, with the marathon, you have to race it still, but you can play with it a little bit. I feel like you can pick it up here, you can slow it down there, and you can kind of even it out a little bit. That's just me. I don't know if that's the science behind it.
Yeah, I don't know either. I've never run one. I've ran two half marathons on my own. But yeah, the some experienced runners have mentioned to me that that is probably the hardest because you're on the gas for the most part the whole time, but obviously you're not running at a 5K pace.
Right.
But you're moving pretty good. And so yeah, someday I'll be brave enough to maybe tackle a marathon if I can get ready for it.
I think
What
the course too, it's different. Like every course is different. So like with Boston, there's so many hills. So the nice thing about that is you can kind of gun it down the hills, change your pace and stuff. And there's just a different beast, I guess, compared to even the 10K, the 10 miler and stuff. There's just different. It's an
Yeah, what
endurance to
was
be able
the
to last it.
what was the vert for Boston? Do you know the climbing?
I do 800, I think. I know I mean, you start the first 4 miles is downhill. So you have to pay attention to
Mhm.
your pace and not go all out. You feel good. Your legs feel great because you're coming off of, taper and stuff and you want to fly. And if you're like, oh wow, I'm doing really good. You look down at your watch and I'm looking at mine at times before it would be like 7:30s. I'm like, dude, you can't hold that 26 miles. You most certainly can't bank that time. So this year, I definitely actually let me see my watch. I think I had my Strava pulled up. I think the vert was 821 was what I had. So,
Okay.
but I mean, you're hitting those hills
Yeah,
at the
yeah,
end.
yeah. Yeah, 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 for sure. Yeah, so that's not a flat course by any means. Wow. What's your summer plans for training? Like what are things going to look like for you? I know you're preparing for the Brookfield Classic in the fall, September 14th, but what are you going to do this summer?
The only race that I signed up for is Boilermaker. just hitting those trails, I needed to find my love again, and I needed to take a break. Uh, Boilermaker, it'll be what it is too. I'm not thrilled about it. I've kind of really backed off from racing and just enjoying it and finding out what I really love about it, and that is just to run. So, Boilermaker's always
Hmm.
been since I started running. So, the only time I wasn't able to race it was the first year that I did Boston. Um, they moved because of COVID and all that. And once it got back into racing, it was the same weekend. So, of course, I'm going to pick Boston. So,
Hmm.
but other than that, it's just
Yeah,
being out on
I
those trails.
Yeah, you and I are very similar with the trail running. I'm new to trail running. I've done it like a year and a half now, but I really, really enjoy trail running as compared to the road.
Yeah.
I get bored on the road. I almost like track workouts better than the road because I'm like monitoring something in
Yeah.
terms of like lap pace, or I'm doing intervals or speed work. But trail running, I actually like lose myself in a good way. Like there's the nature and the sounds, and it's constantly different terrain, and you're not around people and cars. So yeah, I have found a lot of pleasure in trail running. I go in cycles where I burn out with being on the road, and I don't do many miles, nowhere near what you do, but I don't thoroughly love it. But trail running I do like a lot. So I understand
Yeah. I
that.
think I definitely got burnout on the roads. I said to Scott, I'm like, well, I either go this way or I go that way. I'm kind of like, and I was kind of tired of running those roads, and I love the roads around us. So I'm like, what is my problem? And so I don't really like to go out on the trails by myself. So when they opened up to him being able to bike, it was like, yeah, we're out there as much as we can. In fact, we're going out after this. We're going to be out on the trails.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. Cool. One thing I thought about doing, and maybe I don't know if you'd want to join or not. But I was thinking of running, I was thinking of linking all the state lands. I think it's like 18 miles. So like start at Charles E. Baker and then go up through and connect into the Brookfield Railroad Trail, and then connect into, I think, is it the Waterville State Forest? I did it on a map. And there is a way to do it. There's a little bit of road running, but not a lot. But I think it came out to be about 18 miles, where you start in Brookfield and then you end on White Street in Waterville. And you link, I think it's like 4 different state trail systems or something. I think that would be sort of fun to do.
So I thought the other day of like doing the Brookfield state lands, but just doing the truck trails in trying to do like the outskirts of that. So I actually mapped that just because I was curious. So that's kind of a fun way to do that. I like that idea of yours.
Yeah, it's just something different, right? Something to mix it up. But sometime, like if we met down there, and Scott could spot us too,
Oh, for sure.
on the bike, we could look at that. 18 miles for me would be my farthest run, so I would be definitely walking some of that. But
You can
I
do
could
it.
try
You
it at
can do
least.
it.
Yeah. All right, let's I got a few more questions here. So advice for a beginner that's looking to run or train for their first marathon, what advice do you have?
Um, don't log the miles in the first week. A lot of people are like, "Oh, I need to get the miles in." Do it slowly. Build up, start a plan where, set a race, but a lot of plans are like 20 weeks. Go 30 weeks so that you're starting out slow and not burning out and hitting 10 miles and you're like I'm not ready for this, and then you're just discouraged. Start early. Start slowly. I think there's like a certain
Mhm.
percentage to add to your week. I don't know exactly off the top of my head, but don't go and add all these miles on, and then you're so sore and you're so tired and you're like, what in the world? And you don't do it. So that would definitely be one of them. And fuel. So many people do not fuel. That is, it's a make or break your race, or even your run. Even on training runs, fuel. That's a huge thing. I mean, it's not a 10K. It's not even a half marathon. You don't really need a ton for something like that, but for that distance, definitely. And fluids on these hot days. I was
Mhm.
horrible when I first started running, to take water. The last couple of days we've hit almost 90, and I had water with me. And by the time I was back, and they were short runs, they were very short runs. So for me, so taking that water,
Mhm.
those are the two big things. And the third would be proper shoes. Don't go to Walmart. Go get
Yeah.
fitted. The sneaker store is a great one in our area. I go in and I tell the guys, like, this is what I'm looking for, and I've always had good luck with their help, and they're knowledgeable. Find someone that's knowledgeable in the shoes, and don't skimp on that.
Yeah, I'll give a shout out to the sneaker store also. I've
Yeah.
bought a few pairs of shoes from them recently and they're excellent. I got finally, after just having annoying injuries, I went and I splurged and I got at the age of 40, I got my first nice pair of running shoes, not $40 like ASIC walking
Yeah.
shoes. I went and I bought the Saucony Endorphin Pro,
Oh, oh,
which
yes.
yeah.
Those love them.
Yeah. So, Andy, the co-director of the Brookfield Classic and our trainer here, he wears that for road running and he had me try him on in the gym. And after like 3 steps, I was like, holy shit, I have never felt anything like that on my feet in my life.
Yeah,
And so
I wear the elites
what do you
for
wear?
Boston and stuff. And Saucony is I love Saucony. So even for trail running, I wear the Edge. Those are the ones that I wore for last year and stuff. I like the way they fit and stuff. So shout out to Saucony.
That's cool. Yeah, I stuck with Saucony for the trail also, Jenny. I went with the Peregrine, I think it's
Yep.
called.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it wouldn't be good for like the ultra distance, but I don't plan on doing that. But it's more for like a 5, 10, 15K type distance.
Yep. I have a couple pairs of those and I really do like them. I wear them. I actually found a pair for mud and they work great up at
Mhm.
Brookfield.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, there's no shortage of mud, that is for sure. Oh, okay. So last question. Let's do a hypothetical. So someone listening runs 5Ks, they run like a 9:30 to 10-minute mile on a 5K. And that's just their pace and where they're at. So let's go like 50,000 foot view. This person wants to run a marathon. That's like an aspiration and a goal for them. What time frame do you see that person? And again, we're not talking about like male or female or age or body weight, like, but just like approximately a 5K 9:30 to 10-minute mile runner wants to run a marathon. How long of a time frame do you think that they should take to train?
Oh, I mean, that's a decent pace. I mean, and it depends on how strong, how they felt after that. I think give yourself at least, are you talking like how many weeks they should take to,
Yeah.
so like I said, like 25, 30 weeks, start training. I don't think that that is I'd jump in. Like I can't even remember how I think I was up to a 15K when I started training for marathons. Um it took me a while to actually race one because I just wanted to see how I would do and stuff. And it just took me a while to decide to actually race it. It's scary. um, but no, I think that I think that's a great time. I think, and then just again, how you feel after and how often you're running those 5Ks and stuff. I think if you're only doing a couple runs a week, give yourself a little bit more time, 4 to 5 times a week. I think you easily could run a marathon by the fall.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. So it just gives people listening sort of an idea, 25 to 30 weeks, maybe.
Yeah.
Again, hypothetical. Cool. So yeah, let's wrap this up. How can listeners, if they did want to reach out with questions or to follow you and your racing and training, how can they get in contact with you?
I'm on Instagram. It's Run Gen Run. That's probably the easiest. I'm Facebook sometimes and stuff, but my name on Facebook. But Instagram's the best way, probably, where I update the racing and the running I do.
Sure. Awesome. So yeah, we'll put that in the show description there. But Jenny, thank you for chatting. I always enjoy chatting with you. I'm looking forward to seeing you and Scott soon on the
Yep,
trails and
definitely.
start preparing for the Brookfield Classic. So that's great. We'll chat soon. Okay. Thank you, Jenny.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks for having me.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider supporting our sponsors, Native Path Supplements, Lombardi Chiropractic, and A Dog's Day Out Doggy Daycare. They help us bring you 2 new episodes each month and have a special discount just for our listeners. See the show notes for more details. Thank you, and see you next time on the Co Movement Gym podcast.